and welcome. Tonight, over 7,700 Nigerian refugees in Chad are set to return home following an agreement between Nigeria, Chad and the United Nations. INEC renews call for creation of the Electoral Offences Tribunal to ensure speedy prosecution of electoral offenders. Federal government proposes 12-year basic education, denies scrapping GSS and SSS. And dozens of countries back International Criminal Court after President Trump's sanctions.
On business, Nigeria's foreign reserves record fifth consecutive week of decline amid central bank's interventions.
On sports news tonight, the world's football governing body FIFA Data confirms the global transfers during the January window broke the £1.6 billion mark for the first time in a men's game.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf orders an immediate halt to the demolitions in Zimin Zakara following the death of 4 people.
7,790 Nigerian refugees in Chad are set to return to the homeland following the signing of an agreement in Bagasula, Chad Republic. The agreement is between Nigeria, Chad and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which is to ensure the safe and voluntary return of the refugees. Now, the refugees, most of them indigents of Borno State, were displaced for nearly 10 years by the insurgency which affected communities around the Lake Chad Basin and have taken refuge in the Dar es Salaam refugee camp in Chad.
Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, accompanied by the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs, Mr. Yusuf Sununu, is received by the Governor of Lak Province in Chad. The delegation is here to formalize the repatriation of some Nigerians who have taken refuge in Chad following the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria's northeast region. Officials put pen to paper to formalize the tripartite agreement, which involves Nigeria, Chad, and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees.
We are ready to receive all those who voluntarily on their own desire to go back to Nigeria, and we ensure that they are transported back to Nigeria, they are settled and also integrated in our country. They will be given all the conventional rights as enshrined in the international agreements.
We are fully committed to ensuring that this structural framework enables a coordinated and gradual process, guaranteeing refugees a return under the best possible conditions. And as long as these conditions are not met, we know they will continue to rely on Chad's protection in accordance with international commitments.
The agreement is to guarantee the safe and voluntary return of the refugees. In the first batch of the repatriation exercise, 1,768 families, comprising 7,790 people, will return to Nigeria. The delegation also flagged off the voluntary return of the refugees from the Dar es Salaam camp in Chad. The Borno State government is promising to provide support to ensure the returnees are properly settled in their ancestral homes.
We are here to witness the first batch of the repatriation exercise, and I want to commend the federal government of Chad, and I also want to most respectfully commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who has given us all the necessary support in order to facilitate this voluntary return. On my own part as the Governor of Borno State, I will continue to provide the support, and above all, let me commend the Nigerian military.
According to the UNHCR, there are more camps for Nigerian refugees in Chad, and this step is considered the first in many that will see the safe and dignified return of displaced Nigerians in Chad and other neighboring countries.
And now the news of the refugees set to return home from Chad is indeed a welcome development, and it comes at a time where many of them endured a harrowing experience fleeing from insurgents. More than 17,000 Nigerians have been living in Chad as refugees in a remote area of Chad since 2014, facing untold hardships. Now, Channels Television's Mo Sani Aliu at the Dar es Salaam refugee camp near Bagasula in northwestern Chad takes a look at the situation in this report.
This is the Dar es Salaam refugee camp on the northernmost fringes of the massive Lake Chad basin, deep inside the Republic of Chad. Inside this sprawling camp, thousands of Nigerians, young and old, women and children, have spent between 10 to 12 years seeking refuge from the Boko Haram insurgents who forced them out of their homes. They arrived here with only the clothes on their backs after walking for several days through the marshy Lake Chad region. However, thousands of their family members and friends did not make it. The area is remote, without the bare necessities, no electricity, running water, internet access, and tarred roads. It's just a lonely sandy road in and out of the area, hundreds of kilometers from anywhere. The area around Bagasula itself is hot, with a landscape that is dazzlingly bright. It's a toasty 39 degrees Celsius during the day, and at night, temperatures plummet to about 18 degrees Celsius.
Life has been difficult since we got here. There were more than 18,000 Nigerians in this camp at some point in time. Some have left for other places in Chad to escape the harsh life in the camp. From last year, we received food assistance only once.
It appears this time that the promise is being kept because about 20 odd trucks have arrived here already. These refugees will, however, have to travel over a very unforgiving terrain from northwestern Chad to Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. And one can only imagine the level of stress this will add to the mothers and their babies. The trip itself is a logistical headache. The refugees and their goods will have to disembark and switch vehicles twice. What happens after they arrive in Nigeria, and the fate of the rest of the refugees still waiting their turn to be taken home from Dar es Salaam refugee camp remains to be seen. From Dar es Salaam refugee camp in Chad, Mo Sani Aliu reporting for Channels Television News.
Back home and to security, the Commissioner of Police for the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Olatunji Disu, says the FCT Joint Task Force has begun clearance operations in states bordering the nation's capital. Mr. Disu made this disclosure while briefing the press after the second FCT security meeting chaired by the FCT Minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike. He adds that the move is to ensure a total overhaul of the security situation within and outside the FCT.
At the same time, the minister was briefed about clearance operation going on in all areas of our neighboring states bordering the Federal Capital Territory. The military, the civil defense, and the police have been embarking on a lot of clearance, having noticed that these bandits are about to be moving towards the Federal Capital Territory. This clearance operation has been going on, and it has been very, very successful, and it has been contributing to the peace we have been noticing for the past 1 or 2 weeks. We finally decided that we are going to involve security operatives and other states bordering the Federal Capital Territory in joint meeting, joint collaboration, and joint operation, so that we can jointly have outlook on how to police our various states. We do not want incidents of a particular state embarking on this clearance operation and the insurgents will be moving towards other areas of the nation.
The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has confirmed the elimination of a bandit leader in Zamfara known as Kachala Nafaranshi. He made the confirmation at the closing of the Joint Task Force Commanders Conference in Abuja. General Musa adds that the feat was accomplished through the joint effort of all the arms of the military. He emphasized the need for unity of effort, resourcefulness, and the importance of building strong relationships with host communities. Our correspondent Benny Ark reports.
For the past 3 days, service chiefs, commanders of Joint Task Force, as well as retired military chiefs gathered to discuss the various military operations across the country.
The Chief of Army Staff
themed enhancing jointness across all theaters of operation. The conference identified the challenges affecting the operations and proffered solutions, including the need for interagency collaboration.
Counterterrorism and counterinsurgency operations are executed almost at the same time as single service, joint and combined operations. We must therefore learn to understand and accommodate the nuances in our mode of operations and synergize to achieve the desired end state, which is the restoration of peace within our country so that socio-economic activities could thrive. We assure this gathering that we remain committed, we remain devoted to carrying out our statutory mandates, and as the bandits, as the insurgents, as the vandals keep on bringing new tactics, we will keep on also reorganizing and changing our tactics in order to put them on the run. We have determined also to ensure that we take this war to them rather than waiting for them to take the war to us.
Award were presented to several and retired military officers for their contributions to the armed forces. In his closing remarks, the Chief of Defense Staff emphasized the need for unity of effort, explaining the gains of such collaboration in the neutralization of a bandit leader in Zamfara State.
Important to emphasize that the strength of our joint task force lies in our ability to operate as a cohesive and integrated force. Consequently, the collaboration and mutual support demonstrated during this conference must continue to guide our operations in the field. Just as mark of success in what we're doing, that we're doing and working together as a team, both the land forces, the air, the naval, and the air forces. One of the latest victories in the campaign is the elimination of the notorious bandit leader, Kachala Nafaranshi, along with several of his fighters during an aggressive raid in the forest of Zrumi local government just last night. Another victory was the clearing of Sani Black's fortress at Tunga Fulani Hills, a notorious hideout that has served as a strategic base for banditry in the area. Security operatives backed by the air component of the Nigerian Air Force stormed the location, destroyed the camp, and burned down Sani Black's house, forcing him to flee.
The Chief of Defense Staff charged the commanders to be innovative and adapt to the changing security environment. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Talking electoral matters, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has reiterated the call for a special court to try electoral offenders, stating that regular courts are overwhelmed by numerous cases, which is making it long and difficult to try cases of electoral fraud. Professor Yakubu stated this during a stakeholders meeting with the media in Abuja. The INEC boss appealed to the media to support the commission ahead of the upcoming elections across the country.
So far, successful prosecutions have been recorded in Kebbi and Kogi states, while our collaboration with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, on vote buying has yielded similar results in Lagos, Kwara, and Gombe states. Yet, many cases are still pending. A major obstacle to the speedy dispensation of justice in this regard is that electoral offenses are not time-bound, as is the case with post-election offenses through the tribunals. Furthermore, they are solely prosecuted by the magistrate and state high courts in the jurisdiction where the alleged offenses are committed. No priority attention is given to such cases, as the courts deal with a variety of other issues. Consequently, electoral offenses are carried over from one general election to another, which may sometimes affect the diligent prosecution of the cases. It is therefore imperative to renew our call for the creation of the electoral.
In part two, after the break, the federal government proposes 12-year basic education, denies scrapping JSS and SSS forms of education. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Over 7,700 Nigerian refugees in Chad are set to return home following an agreement between Nigeria, Chad and the United Nations. INEC renews call for creation of the Electoral Offences Tribunal to ensure speedy prosecution of electoral offenders. Federal government proposes 12-year basic education, denies scrapping JSS and SSS. And dozens of countries back International Criminal Court after Donald Trump's sanctions. Talking electoral matters, this time a civil society organization, the Kimpact Development Initiatives, is asking security agencies to deploy the use of surveillance technology for real-time incident tracking in the election process in Nigeria. The executive director of the organization, Mr. Bukola Idowu, stated this while presenting security reports for the Edo and Ondo governorship elections in Abuja. While applauding security agencies for ensuring peaceful conduct of the two exercises, Mr. Idowu notes the importance of strict accountability mechanisms and improved welfare for security personnel on election duty to prevent compromise.
We should not be judging peaceful election on what happened on election day. It's a process. So what happened a month to the election is very critical to what happened on the election day. Because naturally, what happened on election day is going to be a bit limited because police restrict movement, and then you have limited, and then they flood most of those states with a lot of security agencies. So on that election day, you are likely going to have peaceful election, but our finding shows that the neglect of pre-election and then post-election is something we need to begin to tackle if we want to move our election forward in Nigeria. And sadly, before the election in Ondo, we had one person died and in Akoko area, and then in Edo, a policeman died before the election. Why the election day was peaceful? Of course, we have few issues of violence. For instance, in Ondo, Idori, where we have shooting that took place in that election. But why that was very peaceful, our report today that we are unveiling today shows that we need to do more as stakeholders, collaborating in terms of how we manage our election.
Talking education now, the federal government has denied scrapping both the junior secondary and senior secondary schools and replacing them with a new 12-year uninterrupted basic education model. In a press statement signed by the Director, Press of the Federal Ministry of Education, Folashade Borewo, the Minister of Education at the Extraordinary National Council on Education meeting held on February the 6th in Abuja presented a proposal for discussion and not an immediate policy change. The statement says that the proposal seeks to migrate to 12 years of compulsory education while retaining the current 633 structure. It further explains that a key aspect of the proposal is to eliminate the examination barrier between JSS and SSS, allowing for a seamless transition of students without the hurdles of an external assessment at that stage, and the proposal is still a subject of consultation and deliberation.
The setting yesterday at the council meeting yesterday was to put this idea out for us to discuss before we now decide what exactly we're going to do. And I want to clearly clear the sensationalization that has gone out since yesterday, that the Federal Ministry of Education, the federal government has scrapped GSS and SS. primary school, GSS and SS education. We have not. That still stays. What we're saying is that we need to move from what we have now as 9 years compulsory education to 12 years of compulsory education as it's obtained in other parts of the world. If you look back into the history of Nigeria, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, people that that went through the primary education then and got up to standard 6. If you compare the level of education, the level of instruction, even as standard 3 then, it's much better than what we get in GSS 3 now.
So let's head to the nation's capital now, and Gloria Mizoke is indeed standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Gloria.
Thank you, Ayo. We begin with Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State, who has ordered an immediate halt of the demolition exercise in Rimin Zakara following a clash between residents and security officials that resulted in the death of 2 people. During a visit to the community, the governor condoled with the bereaved families and promised swift intervention. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, reports.
3 days after the deadly clash between residents of Rimin Zakara and security personnel providing cover for a demolition exercise in Ungogo local government area, Governor Abba Yusuf arrives the community to assess the situation and meet with affected families. The governor engages with community members expressing condolences over the loss of lives.
On behalf of myself and the good people of Kano State, to condole with all of you, to also condole with ourselves. Let us also pray for the reforms, souls of those who died. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them a Jannatul Firdausi.
The governor announces immediate stop to the demolition exercise and directs implementation of development projects in the area to honor the victims.
I've already directed for the immediate supply and installation of a transformer. I've also directed the Commissioner of Health to construct a dispensary for you. And we are going to build a befitting Friday mosque for this community.
Elsewhere, the governor flags up the disbursement of 400 million naira as a revolving fund under the Agro-Climate Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscape Project.
This initiative marks another milestone in our collective efforts towards enhancing environmental sustainability, improving livelihoods, and fostering resilience within our communities.
Each of the 10 benefiting communities will receive $25,000 to support climate-smart agriculture.
I want to reiterate that this fund is a revolving one, which means its success depends on your commitment to transparency and timely repayment. I urge our traditional and community leaders to continue providing guidance and mentorship to ensure that these funds are well utilized and bring lasting benefits to our people.
The governor urges the beneficiaries to use the funds prudently to boost agricultural productivity and environmental resilience.
I would like to congratulate the 10 beneficiary communities for their active participation and readiness to lead by example. I want to seize this opportunity to urge all elected representatives in these structures to uphold the highest standards of integrity and responsibility in the management of this fund.
Governor Yusuf affirms his commitment to justice for the victims and promises strategic development initiatives to support affected communities. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has called its first witness in the case of alleged cybercrime against 193 foreign nationals and 599 Nigerians arrested in a surprise operation at their hideout in Big Leaf Building located in Lagos. At the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos today, the EFCC presented 7 of the foreigners before Justice Deinde Dipolu. 6 were for commencement of the trial and 1 for arraignment. All 6, however, opted for a plea bargain arrangement with the anti-graft agency through their lawyers. The defendants asked the court to grant a short adjournment to enable them open discussions with the EFCC. Trial, however, did commence against one Chao Hong, who is facing a 3-count charge alongside a company, Genting International Limited. The court listened to the testimony of an unemployed cybersecurity student, Roland Turaki, who identified the defendant as one of the employers and narrated how the employees were made to source for European victims online. The court has adjourned to March 18 for continuation of trial. Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo has flagged off free training empowerment for 1,000 youths in the state. This is in line with the public-community partnership of the present administration as undertaken by members of the Solution Youthpreneurs Support Group. Addressing the youths at the International Convention Center, Oka, Governor Soludo gives assurances that his administration will continue to raise youths who will in turn raise more youths for sustainable development and prosperous homeland.
The International Convention Center, Oka, the Anambra State capital, comes alive with the presence of hundreds of youths wearing white t-shirts who are trainees of the Solution Youthpreneur Support Group, SYPSG. The event is the flag-off of the free training empowerment for 1,000 youths of the state towards achieving Governor Soludo's strategic objective of creating 1,000 millionaires yearly, while the state coordinator for Solution Youthpreneur Support Group notes the possibility of achieving the feat. The patron of the support group remarks that Governor Soludo is reenacting what happened in the good old days where companies and establishments provided jobs for youths.
The One Youth Two Skill Solution Program, a program adopted by the federal government and some other state governments because of its successes stories in Anambra State.
The royal piece of advice from the chairman of the Anambra State Traditional Rulers Council and Traditional Ruler of Obusi Kingdom centers on youths being productive while shunning crime and criminality.
If you, the leaders of tomorrow, fail us, then we are finished. Our predecessors, our elders, our forebears never practiced what our youths are practicing today. All this issue of Yahoo, and all sorts of criminality, kidnapping, and so on. All these things were non-existent in the old days.
SYPSG is the initiative of the beneficiaries of Governor Soludo's One Youth, Two Skills program, found their footing in entrepreneurship and decided to give back to raise more millionaires. Some of the beneficiaries react.
It's not like we are here to be trained, not just to be trained on the skills, but also you will undergo entrepreneurship training.
In my center, I have 4 persons from Kogi State. I have from Enugu, I have from Abia, I have from Benue. They all benefit from the program.
Commenting on the exercise, the State Commissioner for Youth Development notes that aside from being qualitative, they're exportable too.
Some of them have even moved beyond Anambra State to Abuja, to Lagos and outside the country. They are testifying on how one youth skills program they underwent is helping them to create wealth.
Governor Chukwuma Soludo, mounting the podium, says his administration is deliberate and intentional on issues of youth development.
We are truly building to last. We're not waiting 10 years or 20 years to evaluate whether this program is sustainable. The proof is here today that we are building to last and that this is a sustainable program.
The governor flags off the initiative, excited that SYPSG is towing the line of public-private community partnership of the state government, and appeals to youth still living in bushes and committing crimes to turn a new leaf or be ready to face the music.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's foreign reserves record 5th consecutive week of decline amid central bank interventions. Well, that's some business news. Do join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. In Anambra State, Governor Umaru Fintiri has called on the newly appointed Gubo Yungur Johnson Dio Matalo to prioritize security, justice, equity, and tolerance. The governor gave the directive during the presentation of the staff of office to the new chief in Dumne, Song local government area of Adamawa State. Governor Fintiri believes the creation of the Yungur chiefdom, along with other ones as well as emirates, is a step towards correcting historical imbalances.
It is the second coronation ceremony in the series of coronations of new emirs and chiefs in Adamawa State. A celebration galore of the people of Yongo, dressed in all colors with different dancing groups, converge on Dune in some local government area of Adamawa State. A display of the rich culture of the Yongo people. Governor Umaru Fintiri, alongside his deputy, the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, members of the State Executive Council and traditional rulers in the state are here to be part of the event. In his welcome address, the National President of Yongo Area Development Association praises Governor Fintiri for his achievements.
Permit me to begin by expressing our profound gratitude to His Excellency for his visionary leadership, compassion and commitment to justice, which have culminated in the restoration of Yungur chiefdom. This landmark achievement has not only restored the dignity of our people, but also given us a renewed sense of identity and belonging.
A display of various traditional dances from all the tribes of the chiefdoms and their neighbors, as well as goodwill messages, are reeled out. The high point of the ceremony is the oath taken by the newly appointed Gubo Yongo, His Majesty Johnson Dio Matalo, conducted by the Chief Judge of Adamawa State Justice Hafsat Abdulrahman, as Governor Fintiri oversees the process.
That I will rule my people with justice. So help me God.
Then the presentation of staff of office follows. In his remarks, Governor Fintiri appealed to the diverse ethnic groups within the chiefdom to see their differences as assets and live in harmony. The Gubo Yongo, His Majesty Johnson Dio Matalo, applauds the governor's courage and inclusive leadership while promising to lead with justice.
You must live in peace with one another, regardless of ethnic, religious, or any other primordial sentiment. The direction, pace, and extent of progress in your chiefdom depends to a large extent on how you embrace each other. My government will not hesitate to take decisions or actions on anyone or anything that stands on the way of unity, peace, and progress of our dear state.
Together, we will work to ensure peaceful coexistence, mutual respect among all tribes within our domain.
This historic event marks a new chapter for the younger people who had waited for decades for the restoration of their chiefdom under previous administrations.
But that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Gloria. Gunmen suspected to be bandits have attacked a mosque in Bushe community, Sabon Birnin local government area of Sokoto State. During the attack, the bandits kidnapped no fewer than 10 worshippers, including the imam. Eyewitnesses told Channels Television that the gunmen invaded the mosque yesterday while worshippers were performing their early morning Subi prayer. The Sokoto State Police Command confirmed the attack on Friday, that's today. And the command spokesman, Ahmed Rufai, says the police authorities are working with other security agencies to rescue the abducted victims. Toleram, operators of Lagos Free Zone, has announced the commitment of a $50 million equity investment by the International Finance Corporation, IFC, to support the development of the industrial hub. This commitment, according to both parties, will help accelerate the first phase development of the 860-hectare Lagos Free Zone through expanding land development, industrial facilities, and logistics infrastructure.
After months of perfecting necessary paperwork, management of Toleram Group and officials of the International Finance Corporation are here to perform the signing ceremony for the facilitation of a $50 million equity investment by the International Finance Corporation, IFC, to support the development of Lagos Free Zone. Without wasting much time, officials from both organizations go straight to the business of the day. After putting pen to paper, the regional vice president of the International Finance Corporation for Africa, Sergio Pimenta, said the Lagos Free Zone will create an environment where companies can come and thrive.
In terms of improving regulations and legislations around free zones that really are, I would say, central to create ecosystems where companies can strive, can trade, can develop their businesses, and this has a direct impact on not just wealth creation for the country, but also job creation.
The chief executive, Toleram, Harish Aswani, noted that with the cooperation from both parties, Nigeria's manufacturing landscape will be better for it.
This is the beginning of a journey, and we're just not looking at the financing from IFC. We're looking at a long-term relationship. We're looking at the advisory that will come from IFC. And more importantly, I think the work that we need to do with government. And that seems to be a challenge, and we need to execute well. And I think with the cooperation of both sides, I think we'll be able to achieve in terms of changing the landscape in terms of long-term policies in this country.
The Lagos Free Zone is uniquely positioned to offer an efficient, unified industrial ecosystem that facilitates seamless import and export operations, positioning Nigeria as a critical player in global value chains.
The next thing that we hope we will work together is that IFC has got a very large database of customers that we hope to attract and bring the FDIs to Nigeria.
So you will have private sector companies coming in and really create employment, create activities, and then it's once you have this ecosystem, it feeds on itself, so it grows. It's going to create even more employment later on.
The Lagos Free Zone will keep contributing to the GDP of Nigeria.
The kind of infrastructure development which we are doing with the country needs at this present of time, which will help us to grow the GDP of the country, creates employment, in turn uplift the life of the people into the country. So that's the way we think we can give back to the society and attract more investors to come to the country.
By addressing critical infrastructure bottlenecks and improving connectivity, this investment is expected to open new business opportunities, strengthen Nigeria's position as a leading regional economic hub, and contribute to the long-term prosperity of the nation.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business with Will Ibom. Will.
Now, Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves have continued their downward trend, falling for the fifth consecutive week. Now, CBN latest data shows reserves dropped by $269.78 million to $39.45 billion as of February the 6th. Despite this decline, analysts expect FX market liquidity to remain strong in the short term, supported by inflows from foreign portfolio investors and stable naira conditions. However, global uncertainties, including U.S. trade tariffs, pose risk Meanwhile, the CBN has maintained interventions selling $60.3 million to authorized dealers, yet the naira still depreciated by about 1.8% to 1,501 naira 41 kobo at the Nigerian Foreign Exchange Market (NFM). Now, members of Nigeria's Financial Inclusion Centers, FIC, say they are working towards a more rounded service to accelerate inclusivity in the country. The president of the FIC Professionals Network PLC, Mr. Shola Bickerstedt, who was a guest on Business Morning, is asking Nigerians to expect the rollout of various services soon.
Only 3% of businesses in Nigeria have access to credit, which is fundamental to economic development. So we are now moving into a phase where we're going to be having a new category of POS agents. We call them financial inclusion experts, but there are parties that you can approach, and if you're a small business, you can go to request if you can access a loan, if you can access to lease equipment and get liquidity for your business. And there will be as plenty as POS operators as we have them all over the place in Nigeria in the coming months. And that will help us to deepen financial inclusion. We're also talking about pension, we're talking about mortgage, and we're talking about e-commerce as well. And so this specialized new category of POS agents who will be certified by the necessary institutes, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, the National Institute of Credit Administrators, Nigeria Interbank Settlement Scheme, NIMC, Data Protection Council of Nigeria. All these people, they will train these individuals so that a lot more small businesses in Nigeria can start accessing loans, grants, credits, leasing facilities that can help them to grow their businesses and Nigeria's economy.
Now in the midst of earnings season, Fidelity Bank has announced the completion of its first phase of its equity capital raise through a public offer and rights issue. In a statement sent to the NGX, Fidelity Bank says the combined offer totaling 272.95 billion naira was oversubscribed by 238%, with shareholder approval secured for the next phase. The bank says it is on track to meet the new regulatory central capital requirements before the CBN's 2026 deadline. Meanwhile, the bank's share price has surged 116% post-combined offer to close today at 21 naira 15 kobo. Now, still speaking stocks and surges, the NGX All-Share Index is not doing badly at all as it closes the final trading day in green territory. John Mekwa has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stock market report, where the most liquid counter is still determining the sentiment at the NGX, even at the close of Friday's trade. Yes, I'm talking about the big guys in the banking counter. FBN Holding, UBA, GTCO, Accessco, and Zenith Bank. They largely contributed to the positive sentiment at the NGX at the close of trade, but not alone. When we look at the counters, we see that others also contributed. So fine, we have banking up very good there, 1.72%, but we also have some positive sentiments around consumer goods, and we've seen some bargain hunting on Cadbury and Honeywell flying the last few days. I'm sure some news driving that. Oil and gas has been positive, especially Eternal Oil yesterday was part of the top trades. Today they're there again. And not surprising after they announced that about 1,000 shares to be given to shareholders. So it's still really positive around there. So at the close of trade, we see the all share is looking good. Not very good, but good in the green, 0.48%, 105,933. We see from intraday to the close of trade, there's been about 400 million added right there. The market cap is still comfortable around 65 trillion naira. And guess who's smiling this weekend? It's the bull.
And that's it on business. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Will. Dozens of countries have expressed unwavering support for the International Criminal Court after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed sanctions on its staff. Here's Simon Puzi with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Sweden's government has announced plans to tighten its gun laws days after the worst mass shooting in the country's history. The gunman, who killed 10 people and himself at an adult education centre in Örebro on Tuesday, had 4 legally owned rifles, 3 of which were found at the school. Sweden's centre-right coalition said it would seek to increase vetting for gun licences and restrict access to semi-automatic weapons. The Sweden Democrats said that it agreed with the proposals to amend the law, including greater restrictions on access to semi-automatic weapons.
We believe that the right balance is to roll back the regulation and prohibit that kind of weapon. And we do it not, it's important for me to underscore, not based on information of exactly what kind of weapon that was used in this shooting, but given the background that we now have experienced in such a shooting also in Sweden, and that we know that kind of weapon, both with some changes, can become very dangerous, and also that it has been used.
The International Criminal Court has vowed to continue its judicial work after US President Donald Trump signed an order to impose sanctions on its staff. The ICC said it stands firmly by its personnel and the order seeks to harm its independent and impartial work. Mr. Trump's order accuses it of illegitimate and baseless actions after the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over alleged war crimes in Gaza, which Israel denies. The ICC also issued a warrant for a Hamas commander. The ICC is a global court, although the US and Israel are not members, with the power to bring prosecutions for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. America's Foreign Aid Agency could see its staff slashed from about 10,000 to fewer than 300 globally, as the Trump administration makes major cuts to government spending. All but a handful of essential staff are already set to be placed on administrative leave at midnight on Friday, including thousands based abroad. An online notice says a plan is being prepared for return travel and the termination of non-essential contractors. Trump's cutbacks to US aid, championed by his cost-cutting advisor Elon Musk, have upended the global aid system, with hundreds of programs already frozen in countries around the world. The United Nations Children's Organization has warned that gang rule in Haiti has led to a staggering rise in sexual violence against children. The Caribbean island has been in the grip of violent gangs for several years, who have been treating the population with unrelenting brutality, according to UNICEF. UNICEF said sexual violence against children has increased 1,000% since 2023. The agency estimates 85% of the capital Port-au-Prince is under the control of gangs. More than 1 million children are living in the constant threat of violence. 2 people have been killed and 2 more injured when a small plane crashed in Sao Paulo, according to emergency services. The aircraft came down on the busy Marques de São Vicente Avenue, colliding with a bus on the ground. A passenger on the bus and a motorcyclist hit by debris were taken to hospital, while those who died were aboard the plane. Smoke could be seen rising over Brazil's largest city in the aftermath of the incident. A notorious conman who spent 4 years in a British jail has now been sentenced to 6 years in France for ramming his car into 2 policemen while trying to avoid questioning. Robert Hendy Freegard had moved to a rural area of central France to breed beagles illegally several years ago under a false name. Neighbours had already been suspicious of him before 2 Netflix documentaries highlighted his activities as a conman. Henry Freegard had posed as an MI5 spy to con women and students out of £1 million, but he was released after 4 years when some of his convictions were overturned. And a canal in a suburb of Argentina's capital Buenos Aires has turned bright red, alarming local residents. Pictures and videos show the intensely coloured water flowing into an estuary, the Rio de la Plata, which borders an ecological reserve. Local media reports suggest the colour may have been caused by the dumping of textile dye or by chemical waste from a nearby depot. The Environment Ministry said in a statement that water samples had been taken from the Sarandi Canal to determine the cause of the colour change. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Let's get the very latest from the world of sports with Chris Illems.
Thank you, Ayo, and welcome to Sports News. Katsina United beat Heartland FC of Owerri 1-0 in the Nigeria Premier Football League Match Day 23 game played earlier this evening at the Muhammadu Diko Stadium in Katsina. With the result, Katsina are now unbeaten in 7 meetings between both sides with 3 wins and 4 draws. Meanwhile, action will continue tomorrow with 3 league games lined up. The league leaders, Remo Stars, will host Kano Pillars, who have placed their technical advisor, Usman Abdullah, on suspension owing to poor round of results in Ikene. Shooting Stars, who are second on the league table, will host Benin Arsenal Bendel Insurance in Ibadan. El Kanemi will host Nasarawa United in another Saturday's fixture. And for the first time, FIFA data confirms global transfers during the January window broke the £1.6 billion mark in the men's game, with Premier League champions Manchester City accounting for 10% of the spending spree with a £179 million outlay on 4 new players. The top 5 was completed by clubs in Germany, £237.7 million, Italy, £178 million, France, £167 million, and Saudi Arabia, £162 million. The total spend in the men's game was nearly 20% higher than the previous record set in January 2024, but the Premier League's total spend of £370 million was well behind the record £815 million spent in 2023. Aston Villa manager Unai Emery says he has a challenge ahead to get the best out of Marcus Rashford, but still sees big potential in the 27-year-old. Rashford joined Villa on loan for the rest of the season this week after being discarded by Manchester United boss Ruben Amorim. The England international has not played since December the 12th, 2024, but Emery is confident he can get Rashford back fit and firing in the final 4 months of the season. Meanwhile, it's an FA Cup victory for Manchester United, beating Leicester City by 2-1. And that sports news is back to you, Ayo.
And the main news again. Over 7,700 Nigerian refugees in Chad are set to return home following an agreement between Nigeria, Chad, and the United Nations. And INEC has renewed call for creation of the Electoral Offences Tribunal to ensure speedy prosecution of electoral offenders. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Do have a good night and have a great weekend.